Well, we love counting on this next guest as an expert for us on matters involving our military. He's been a great resource. He is a senior fellow and military expert at Defense Priorities. He's USA retired, Army retired Lieutenant Colonel Danny Davis, who joins us once again this morning on one of the most unusual stories we've ever spoken about, and it is about how our military is now being placed in charge of trying to secure the internet and stop automated disinformation attacks out there. What does it all mean? Well, let's find out. First of all, Danny Davis, I was absolutely shocked when I first saw this story. I said, "You got to be kidding me."
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I like it when the military focuses on its warfighting job to win the nation's wars, to deter conflict. That's what we're made for. But when you start getting into this area where it's information operations and deception and all this other kind of thing, you get into some gray and possibly dangerous territory, which I'm not a big fan of, I gotta say.
Yeah, well, I can understand why. I mean, look, information is key to what the military does, obviously, but, there are sources for that information, and it's not necessarily from military people. It comes from other areas of our government, doesn't it, from the CIA and et cetera.
Well, that's exactly the point, because when you dig into a little bit more about what they're actually proposing and what they're saying the military is going to do, it's not talking about military disinformation. It's not talking about, enemy military attempts to sway public or whatever, but it's like personal or political issues. And that's the big danger. When you get the military involved in something that's primarily political, you can start getting into some territories that I don't think it's good for the United States to be in.
Well, exactly. I mean, if you have the military taking sides, let's just look at the last election, for instance, the last presidential election. Let's say the military was looking into Russian interference, whatever they were doing in various aspects of trying to get information out on Facebook and the like. Is the military then taking sides of the Republican or the Democrat? And how does that look? I mean, the military is supposed to be completely nonpartisan.
Yeah, that's another layer of concern, because it's not merely, it's not just the United States, but now then, you have just human beings that are operating this stuff. And if you're a person who normally votes Democratic or normally votes Republican, and you're in charge of this thing, you can see how you would be tempted, because no one can see what's going on, to sway it in a direction that favors your candidate or your party. And, that's just not anything we're supposed to do. And when you look a little bit deeper in what they're talking about here, I think the biggest danger is that it says that they want to have this software, this capability to intercept and change what they view as being inaccurate information. But you can see that if you get that capability, you can not just change something that's inaccurate, but you can change something you just don't like. And you can shape it in ways that you prefer. And that's where the whole free speech thing comes in, that, we don't want to thwart free speech. We do want to keep interference in our elections, like from Russia or China or anywhere else for that matter. So that's a valid situation, but not for the military and not in a political way.
Yeah, there are other ways to do it. And what about the responsibility of the online sites themselves, like Facebook, like Twitter, to make sure that information gets out? They have a better chance of stopping some of this misinformation spread than anyone else does, just as they have a way of identifying those who are dangerous out there and making threats online.
That's exactly right. And there's a lot of people out there talking already about how, if anything, our government, Congress, whatever, they need to be taking action to keep the integrity of our election system valid. And these civilian entities that you just mentioned there, they have an obligation to their shareholders and to their people, the users like us, to keep that thing accurate, free, fair, and open. And it's their responsibility. It's the civilian, it's the government, not the military. That's just not the right instrument.
Well, exactly, and that's why we have, the Posse Comitatus Act that doesn't allow our military to operate on our own soil. So now we're suddenly saying, but it's okay in this regard.
Yeah, that's there for a good reason, because you've seen throughout history and throughout other people's cultures and whatever that the military can be misused by political authorities, and we're not immune to that. And so it's good that we have some fire breaks in there to keep that kind of thing from happening. But now then, with this advancement of the digital realm, it's posse comitatus. The concept has to apply more than just on the physical battlefield, but also in the digital battlefield.
Yeah, amen to that. So who's got to put a stop to this? Do we just have to keep raising our voices and complain until Congress listens?
Yeah, I do. I think that's the right way, because right now it appears that they're just almost not even asking. They're just informing us this is what's going on. And I think that, as citizens, we got to say, hey, no, that's not what we want. That's Congress's job. Congress, do your job to keep us safe, and don't just punt it off on the military, because it can be misused. That's the whole point. George Washington warned against a lot of these things in his farewell address, where he says, hey, something that might be good and positive for the moment, you get something systemically like this, it could be used as a tool to suppress the people later on. So he's right then, and it's right now.
Danny Davis, always a great pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And the conversation's always enlightening and inspiring in a lot of different ways. So we thank you for that.